Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday service of Now Creations. Always a joy to remind you that the most important presence, the most important life is the life within yourself, that God Spirit. And learning to know this life is really to know life itself. I encourage you each day to know that presence within yourself. Allow it to come forward. May you express it daily in your life for your betterment and for the betterment of others as well. Let's begin. My dear friends, the last 8 teachings have focused on the foundational teachings of A Course in Miracles, the contemporary blessing in our ascending spirituality. I encourage you to review often these teachings. They will not only ground you, but also elevate you into the spirituality that you always knew was possible and is simply waiting for you to wake up to. I will return to several issues now that we are presently facing. While it is truly important to know the answers to our own questions about life and the questions that others have and so on, it is also important for us not to simply live in ivory towers that, in a sense, remind us a little bit of life, but seem to be removed from our everyday living, not just for ourselves, but also with others. It is precisely this point that I want to address in today's teaching. We need to speak to the real issues of life and at a deeper, more realistic level. The first issue that I will address is the struggle. It's the struggle that many people seem to be having in life. In so doing, I will begin with 2 sayings that address the issue, proceed to identify the 2 main problem areas, and then address, as we always do, the spiritual solutions that will free you from the struggles if you are ready and willing to embrace the solutions. Today's teaching is entitled The Return to Love. Let's begin with 2 sayings that help us to illumine the notion of freedom itself. The first saying is one that many of you are quite familiar with, the saying, no pain, no gain. No pain, no gain. While this saying is often applied to physical efforts, it also speaks to the broader understanding that anything worthwhile, any endeavor that is worthwhile, has sometimes some pain associated with it. It takes work and sacrifice. The pain. No pain, no gain. You're quite acquainted with that saying. The second saying comes from the Up With People movement that began in the late 1960s, a movement that inspired many people to be more responsible in life, especially using the art forms of dance and music, and also some good sayings. The saying that I remembered from the 1960s has always stuck with me is this: freedom isn't free. You have to pay the price. You have to sacrifice for your liberty. Freedom isn't free. You gotta pay the price. Gotta sacrifice for your liberty. While each of these sayings have 3rd-dimensional applications, they can also be elevated into a 5th-dimensional view of life that focuses on spiritual solutions to the struggles that many people are presently experiencing. So let's now address these struggles and hopefully some causes that we can then eventually alleviate. It goes without saying that many people, perhaps most people, are struggling with certain things in life. While there are a host of external struggles, from relationships to finances, from raising your own kids to assisting with grandkids, there are also a host of internal struggles dealing with mental, emotional, and physical issues. There is no need for us. There is no need for us to simply dwell on the problems. So let us now look at the causes of the struggle and offer an immediate solution. Now, let me be clear. I am addressing struggles from a spiritual perspective. I'm going to be addressing struggles from a spiritual perspective. While there are clearly third-dimensional issues involved, the real causes of struggle lie beyond the third-dimensional issues. Remembering the words of Wayne Dyer, for every problem, there is a spiritual solution. In fact, the problem with so many of the people's struggles is that people try to solve the problem from a third-dimensional standpoint. Like everyone, they want a quick fix rather than looking at the roots of the problem, which demand greater understanding. Thus, from a fifth-dimensional spiritual standpoint, that will solve all of our third-dimensional problems as well. I believe that there are two foundational problems which cause people to struggle. See what you think. Again, these two problems often do not seem to be on the surface of the problem, but it doesn't take much digging to clearly see their presence underneath. The first problem. This first problem that causes people to struggle, it's an ongoing problem, is self-centeredness. This is a very difficult problem to solve because a lot of people will simply say, well, what's wrong with being self-centered? If you don't take care of yourself, who will? If you don't take care of your family, well, who will? These are legitimate questions to address, and they deserve respectful answers. But the problem arises from an ongoing sense of self-centeredness, wherein one begins to feel that they are always right and other people are wrong. And oftentimes, they can justify actions for themselves, which they would criticize in others. I'm going to repeat that again. Oftentimes, you end up justifying an action in yourself, which you would criticize in others. And they know that eventually this self-centeredness results in isolation, or only connects with those who have similar self-centered views, whether it's in their family, with their friends, country, religion, or race. Such self-centeredness often results in pride and feeling superior, whether blatant or in secret. It's just so easy to lie to yourself about what you're doing. And this really is the struggle within the individual to keep their secrets, even when they know their secrets are often causing the problems. And often, of course, you can't tell such people that they have a problem because they will say either, well, you just don't understand me, or you really don't know what you're talking about. The struggle continues. The struggle continues because of the self-centeredness. And while the person might be feeling occasional pain, they are not quite ready for the game. It would just be too much for them to sacrifice at this time. The second area of struggle, which often complicates the problem of self-centeredness, is the materialism of the world. Now, it's really easy to criticize the materialism of the world, and we can quote the words, as I often have done, of William Wordsworth from the early 19th century, that the world is too much with us, which it is. But the fact of the matter is that so many people are so immersed in the stuff of the world. There always seems to be a need to have more or to want more, especially to have, well, quite frankly, more money for things, more money for securities, just more and more and more stuff. And of course, the advertisers love it. They will accommodate us. They will accommodate us, offering of us more and more of the latest and the have to have. And just as those who are caught in self-centeredness, it is very, very difficult to show those who are caught in materialism that the world has a grip on them. They will simply say something like, well, I'm enjoying myself, and my family is enjoying themselves. What's wrong with that? And again, no satisfying answers can be made to one who is not quite ready to see. And yet, their struggle goes on, trying to get enough stuff to satisfy themselves and their families and friends. And then, of course, the biggest struggle of never finding that one thing that really satisfies them. And sometimes they end up faking being happy, not quite willing to admit that something might be missing. And again, it's quite easy to lie to yourself, fake being happy. In both cases, the struggle with self-centeredness and worldly materialism, it is impossible to tell those who are engaged they might be lost. But to the person, such as you, who is on the spiritual path, who has been there and done that with the other stuff, you clearly see that something has been missing in your life, and you are now ready to look at life differently. To such people as you, I now address the following words. First, a little sidebar observation, but a very powerful one. If you have not learned this lesson yet, it's time. The good news about having a spiritual struggle, either in self-centeredness or worldliness, quite frankly, for anything else, the good news is that the struggle is really a blessing. Your struggle is clearly showing you that you need to look elsewhere for a solution to that problem. Your struggle shows you clearly what isn't working for you. And you can complain about it all you want, but what you really need to do is to find a better direction in your life. The pain of the struggle is leading you to the gain of the spiritual solution. I highly encourage you to understand the following spiritual principle. Whenever you are in even the slightest dissatisfaction, it is time to ask yourself, why are you dissatisfied? And to choose a better spiritual replacement. This is critical. In the smallest dissatisfaction, or something even major, it's very important to ask yourself, well, why are you dissatisfied? And to choose a better spiritual replacement. I personally have used this principle time and time and time again in my life to release what no longer satisfies, to clearly understand why it no longer satisfies, and to replace it with a much better spiritual value. Please remember that any struggle or problem you have in life is a blessing for you, and there is a spiritual solution to it. Use the struggle as an elevation point. Use the struggle as an elevation point to the spiritual solution. So let's now address the spiritual solution to any pain, but also what you will need, in a sense, to sacrifice for your growth, for your liberty. Freedom isn't free at the spiritual level until you do the work. In 1992, Marianne Williamson wrote a beautiful book on her reflections on A Course in Miracles. Many of you have read the book. While the book is an excellent read and contains many beautiful reflections, it's the title of the book. It's the title of the book, namely A Course in Miracles, that is really the more important thing. Many of you know the title, and you are living accordingly. The book is entitled The Return to Love. The return to love. The return to alignment. You clearly understand the importance of this saying, the return to love, because of the two principles that the Course has taught. You remember the first principle, God is love. Well, therefore, so am I. And then Jesus said, teach only love, for, well, that's what you are. Now what I want to do, I want to take you deeper into this return to love. First, sharing with you a principle and then a practice. First, the principle. Listen carefully, very carefully. Do you recall the time when you were so thirsty, or a time you were so hungry, you just wanted a drop of water to satisfy your thirst, or a morsel of food to satisfy your hunger? The point is this: just as your thirst longs for water, and your hunger longs for food, your soul longs for the God Spirit. I'll say it again. Just as your thirst longs for water, and your hunger for food, your soul longs for the God Spirit. Your soul longs for love, that God Spirit within you. The good thing about your struggles is that they have shown you where not to look anymore. They have shown you where you're not going to find what you want. We've all been there, all the cul-de-sacs, all the dead ends, all the no outlets, all the blind alleys that have kept us trapped. Finally, after all the wrong turns, after all the wrong exits, you are ready to make a U-turn. Not so much a driving U-turn, but a Y-O-U turn, a U-turn. You are now ready to turn within, and as you do so, let me suggest the principle and then the practice. First, the principle. The divine energy living within you is the urge for you to become more divine. The divine principle, the Holy Spirit, living within you is your urge to become more divine. The divine energy, the God Spirit, at the very center of our being, has been placed there to urge us to become more and more divine, more and more spiritual. With this principle in mind, let me now present to you the practice in 3 progressive steps. This will end all of your struggles. The first step to return to love, to move beyond your struggles, is to completely understand the following analogy. Just as you need a physical home from which you go forth and can return to at the end of the day, it is also very important to develop a spiritual home. To develop a spiritual home from which you go forth each day and to which you can return not just at the end of the day, but at many times during the course of the day. That's the first step, developing a spiritual home. Step 2, we have such a spiritual home. It is our conscious soul center. Our spiritual home is our conscious soul center. More than 50 years ago, a friend of mine made me a wall hanging with these significant words. You have within you an inner sanctuary to which you can retreat at any time and become your true self. You have within you an inner sanctuary to which you can retreat at any time and become your true self. This wisdom has proven helpful to me over the years. I truly realize that this inner sanctuary, Jim himself called it the sanctuary of the pink diamond, some call it the Sacred Heart, is simply the God Spirit at the very center of your soul that is urging you to become more divine. It's urging you to become more divine. It is this presence that I have returned to again and again in my life to calm my fears, to ease my struggles, and especially to elevate my spiritual path. I realize that there is a divine urging within me, prompting me to become more divine, more like itself. You also have this inner sanctuary, which brings us to the 3rd step. To establish a spiritual home within yourself from which you will be able to go forward each day and to return satisfied in the evening. It is this inner sanctuary that is the return to love. It is this inner sanctuary that is the return to love and will dissolve your struggles and replace those struggles with an ascending spiritual practice. Now, here's the point of today's teaching. Have you established a daily spiritual home. Now, you can't fool yourself. Either you have or you haven't. Have you established for yourself a daily spiritual home? Have you established your inner sanctuary from which you can go forth at the beginning of the day, return many times during the day, and especially return peacefully to in the evening? This freedom, this return to love is free, but you have to pay the price. You have to sacrifice for your liberty. You have to sacrifice. You have to pay the price to release yourself from your struggles by establishing that personal spiritual home. You have had the pain. Is it not time to finally establish your gain, to allow your struggles to have pointed you to establish your spiritual home, that spiritual sanctuary at the very center of your being? Have you done so yet? It's just a good question for you to ask. Have you done so? You know the 7 daily spiritual principles we recommend. You know how important it is to join others of like mind and spirit. But have you done so? Has the pain been enough for you to do so yet? Moving beyond partial success, hopefully now to a complete devotion. This is what we've been preparing for. Moving beyond our spiritual struggles as we develop that inner sanctuary to which we can retreat at any time and find the God self waiting for us at the very center of our being. In conclusion, I know that you have approached the importance of facing the realization of your struggles in love. You realize that oftentimes they result because of self-centeredness and excessive materialism. We've had enough pain. Our gain is now that these struggles have led us to the return to love. They have led us to this return to love, a way of living and loving that our soul longs for, and one that we will satisfy together in our spiritual future. Let me now take you into meditation, and what a joy it is to do so. Just nice, easy breathing. So is there something that you're still struggling with? It's not that you're not doing decently well on the surface of your life, but for your advancement, is there something within you that you know that's still there, and you're still a little iffy about it? Is there something that you just want to resolve? Take a moment to identify that. you'll probably find in some way, shape, or form that the real problem is self-centeredness, getting what the little you personality self wants, keeps holding on to, and or just getting lost in stuff, or a combination of the two. You're not going to solve the problem third dimensionally. So would you get over trying to find a solution in the third dimensional room? It's just not going to happen. So the good news with the pain, with the struggle, is that all of the places you have looked for over the years that have not ceased to make you struggle are good indications of where not to look anymore, and to start moving into a fifth dimensional view of life, where you want to replace that struggle with a spiritual understanding that not only eases the pain, but elevates you in the process. So just before we move into the more positive aspect of this meditation, please recall the principle. If you have even the slightest dissatisfaction in your life, ask yourself why you're dissatisfied. And replace it with a fifth dimensional spiritual quality. You're not going to solve it from the third dimension. It's a great book, Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. The essence of the book always boils down to the two principles. God is love, therefore, so am I. And teach only love, for that is what you are. Somewhere along the way, as you rise to your fifth dimensional awareness, these are the two waves that carry you. That's the theory. Here's the practice. Have you developed the daily spiritual home from which you go forth and return to daily? Now, obviously, you can't kid yourself if you haven't. But the obvious reason why you can't kid yourself is because you're probably still struggling. Well, I need to solve it in my life. You're just looking at a third dimensional dead end. You need to elevate into a fifth dimensional solution. Just as your thirst yearns for water, your hunger for that morsel of food, your soul longs for the Godstone. This is the spiritual solution to every human problem. Your pain has led to your gain. You've sacrificed enough to know your true freedom. And now you're just ready to return to love and to do so with others who are similarly devoted. Okay, so just before we come back to our group consciousness, let's return to love. Let's return to, well, God is love, therefore so am I. And I will teach only love, for that is at the center of my being. And I'm just doing it more and more and more. And in the process, I will release self-centeredness and materialism. That's the process. So the energy of that release and the return to love, let me invite you to move back to your breath. Notice the enjoyment, the enthusiasm, the looking forward to the day that you're going to enjoy, and establishing that spiritual home at the center of your being. Have you not put it off enough? And with that, let me invite you to gently breathe your eyes open. Kind of a nice smile on your face, one in your heart. I am an eternal being, applied in love. Thus, well, any good can come to me, no any good can come from me. And we are eternal beings of light and love. Thus, only good can come to us, and only good can come from us. Namaste.